The process of getting back to normal is starting here in Port Neches, but even though families can return home, they will face some restrictions. I'm Angel San Juan. I'll explain in a live report coming up.
And tonight we have the latest breaking information on the TPC explosion and are holding officials accountable.
A cold front headed towards southeast Texas, and that's going to bring showers and thunderstorms. We'll talk about it coming up. We begin tonight at 6 with some major headlines stemming from the explosions at the TPC plant and the fire that followed.
Right now, you can probably notice a dramatic decrease in the plume of smoke coming from the plant compared to Wednesday, even yesterday. An explosion rocked that plant in Port Neches around 1 a.m. Wednesday, then a second explosion around 2 in the afternoon Wednesday. That created an even larger fire, and throughout the day, multiple small explosions and more black smoke poured from the site. No one has died from this explosion. 3 workers did suffer injuries. 1 burns, 2 others suffered fractures. Each were treated and released. 5 others in the community sustained cuts from glass.
The happening now, these headlines, the key takeaways from emergency managers and first responders. County Judge Jeff Brannick has lifted the mandatory evacuation order impacting everyone within a 4-mile radius of the plant. In Port Neches, Groves, Nederland, and part of Port Arthur, the curfew has also been lifted. The explosions propelled asbestos into yards, streets, and neighborhoods. Families are urged not to touch any material from the plant. Air monitoring shows no levels that violate federal and state guidelines. That's according to regulators, but that process will continue.
KFDM's Angel San Juan has been on this story since the very first explosion early Wednesday morning.
Angel is a resident of Port Neches, and that's where we find him right now, a city that's not as empty as it was only a few hours ago. Angel?
Hey Greg, a lot of folks heeded the call to evacuate. So yes, for a couple of days, Port Neches seemed like a ghost town, except for a large presence of law enforcement. That presence continues tonight. The officers are making sure that no vacant homes are targeted by looters. But families are steadily coming back home. However, there are restaurants and stores that remain closed. And at least for the immediate future, life here will be a little bit different. Dana Weldon catching up on yard work. The retired Port Neches police officer has had a lot of alone time the past couple of days. He's one of the few citizens who decided not to evacuate the city after 2 explosions at the TPC plant. But Friday morning, Jefferson County Judge Jeff Brannick lifted the mandatory evacuation order. Are you looking forward to getting your neighbors back?
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah, no, I'm good about that. Yeah, it'll be nice.
Residents are allowed back into Port Neches, but their mobility remains restricted. There are safety zones surrounding the plant where fires still burn.
We don't need looky-loos, because what happens is we have first responders that are out there trying to continue to protect the safety of our citizens. And when you start bunching up around this restricted area, then they're impeded as far as being able to do their job. So, I get pretty harsh when I say, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, stay away from the restricted area for their own safety as well. For their own safety as well as our first responders.
And Judge Brannick advises those with respiratory issues to avoid the area until the smoke subsides. Another concern, debris from the plant that landed on people's properties. TPC officials warn you not to pick it up nor touch it.
Our facility is a dated facility, and by dated I mean it's been around for a number of years, built back in the 40s. Asbestos at the time was an acceptable insulator, and so there still is the possibility of asbestos.
TPC set up a hotline for folks that find this debris to call it in, and the company will dispose of it. The same number, 1-866-601-5880, can be called to report damages and evacuation expenses. Work to repair damages to 5 Port Neches Groves ISD campuses is already underway, but the start of school after the Thanksgiving holiday is delayed 1 day. Classes Monday canceled. Superintendent Dr. Mike Gonzalez expressing pride in his teachers and students.
They're resilient. We've been through so much. We've been through hurricanes, we've been through cyber attacks, and now we're dealing with this incident. They do well. They'll come back and they'll do just fine.
And Weldon hopes the plant where this ordeal started will make a comeback. He says he knows it's generating many mixed feelings right now, but he says it's played an important role in Port Neches history.
That plant my wife's father worked at, I worked at it when I got out of the Marine Corps. You know, it's brought a lot to the community. Hopefully they can build it all back.
The school district is conducting its own air monitoring independently from what's going on from the company and county officials. Also, for those living in the Little Abbeville neighborhood of Port Neches, well, police say they will have to present an ID when they're going to their neighborhood because it is near a restricted area. We're live in Port Neches. Angel San Juan, KFDM 6 News.
Since the evacuation order has been lifted for areas surrounding the TPC Group plant, there are several safety zones in the immediate area to help protect residents. Now, due to the inclement weather, certain dangerous materials associated with smoke are being detected, which could be harmful to sensitive groups and could result in respiratory irritation if directly exposed. Again, air monitoring is ongoing since the initial explosion. Tonight, we're learning more about what's in the tanks on the TPC property. Tiffany's been asking the tough questions, researching what TPC has said, and questions the companies told us it could not answer when we posed them last night. Tiffany?
That's right, Greg. Federal regulations require every company to know what is inside those tanks. Just after 2 this afternoon, I spoke with the production manager with TPC and the public information officer for Jefferson County, and they tell me they started compiling that data last night after I asked again. I wanted to know, again, what specifically is on every single one of those tanks on their property. You might recall previously at news conferences, the media was told TPC wasn't sure because power went out to the plant after the first explosion just before 1 o'clock Wednesday morning. So that we're clear, each petrochemical company by law is required to have process data and records up to the minute information about the chemicals that are stored on their facility. That information is electronic, so even if power lost, like it was here, the company should know the last measurements before the first explosion occurred. We've been digging, and here's a look at what we've learned so far. We're going to break it down for you. TPC has a total of 102 tanks. Those tanks are divided into 2 types, spheres and atmospheric tanks. Not all the tanks were in service. 14 tanks were out of service. 88 were in service and contained some sort of material at the time of the explosion. 71 of those were sphere storage tanks. 9 of those were impacted at some level, with 1 additional spherical tank that ruptured. That tank contained raffinite, but I'm told it burned off without incident. Now, spherical tanks used to store chemicals under pressure, those materials include the following on your screen: raffinite, liquefied petroleum gas that's similar to butane. It has a high volatility. Butadiene, liquefied petroleum gas similar to propane. Polyblends, heavier components of an unrefined gas mixture, and they are moderate vitality. Crude C4, an unrefined gas mixture, rich solvent used to separate products. Now, those 9 spheres that were impacted, we just learned, ranged a little as from smoke exposure and discoloration to combusting, but the public information officer tells me he can't comment right now on how many are combusted because they don't have full visuals of those 9 tanks. Those 9 tanks that had that range of situation included 4 raffinite tanks, 2 butadiene tanks, 1 crude C4, 1 polyblend, and 1 rich solvent. These are extremely flammable chemicals. If you come in contact with them, they can cause health issues from eye irritation, damage to the central nervous system, headaches, nausea, cancer. The other tanks, called atmospheric tanks, are used to store low vapor pressure materials. They are not as flammable as the chemicals stored in the sphere tanks. In the 17 API tanks in service, those materials inside: fire water, that is raw water used to fight fires and as hurricane prep in case of a flood like Harvey. The tanks that aren't actively in service are filled with fire water to prevent them from floating away. Also in the tanks, caustic, that's a chemical used for water treatment that has virtually no volatility. NMP, that's a solvent that helps separate products. MTBE, fuel additive that helps engines run. And I'm told these 3 materials are stored at TPC for the Huntsman Corporation. 2 API tanks did rupture. The ruptured tanks contained NMP, and according to the World Health Organization, NMP has a low potential for skin irritation and a moderate potential for eye irritation in rabbits. And those API storage tanks that ruptured were involved in the processing unit that initiated the entire event. Greg?
Well, new information tonight surrounding the asbestos exposure for those who live near the TPC plant. Today, officials told us asbestos may be in debris which could be found in Port Neches and parts of Port Arthur and Nederland. Fox 4 News anchor Kimberly Roosley joins us now. Kimberly, some are reasonably concerned about the potential for exposure.
Yeah, Greg, this is definitely a public health concern. TPC and city and county officials urge residents not to touch the debris if they see a white or beige chalky substance. But of course, some people are already back home and have already started removing debris. TPC is asking homeowners near the plant to survey the conditions of their yards. One of the vessels that was compromised at the plant could have blown the debris over into the neighborhood, which may contain asbestos. And of course, asbestos is known as a human carcinogen. According to the National Cancer Institute, when you breathe in asbestos fibers, they may get trapped in the lungs, and over time, those fibers can cause scarring and inflammation. Symptoms of exposure include shortness of breath, dry cough, and chest pain. And there is sufficient evidence, of course, that asbestos causes mesothelioma. If you see any white or beige substance that appears to be asbestos outside your home or even inside, some of it chalky, some of it in blanket form, some of it in block form, call the TPC Claims Hotline, which is 866-601-5880.
But any debris that you have is potentially contaminated debris. And there's 2 issues. One, we don't want anyone that's not qualified to remove that material to remove it and expose themselves. And 2, this debris, if it is contaminated, has to be disposed of properly and cannot go in a normal landfill.
Now, just a few hours ago, we asked the TPC spokesperson, Peyton Keith, if they have any idea on how much asbestos may have made it to the surrounding communities. This is what he said. We can't speculate as to the amount of debris outside the site at this time. Asbestos is in the debris. It's important to re-emphasize the safety messages that Judge Brannick made in the press conference earlier, though. If residents encounter any debris from the event on or near their property, they should immediately contact the appropriate authorities. Residents should not attempt to handle or remove any debris. And Judge Jeff Brannick says air sampling started yesterday for asbestos fibers, and those results have been sent to a lab. They expected results towards the end of the day today, but we just checked before news time and they don't have them yet. Tiffany?
Great information. Thanks, Kim. Meantime, the Diocese of Beaumont reaching out to offer comfort to families impacted by the TPC explosions and fire. Bishop Curtis Guillory will celebrate a Mass of Thanksgiving at St. Elizabeth Church in Port Neches, 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon. The bishop says he is asking the faithful to continue to pray for all of those affected by the explosions. The Walmart on Twin City Highway located in Port Arthur back open today after it was shut down from the evacuation. This was the second time within months that store has been impacted by a disaster. This specific store was flooded during Imelda, forced to close its doors then. And even though they weren't open at the same time as other Walmart stores, they are still offering Black Friday deals.
The mayor was saying, I don't know if they'll be open, but here we are. They're open and everything's coming back to normal. And it's kind of a real way to step back and say thanks for what we have.
Well, stay on KFDM for on-air and online coverage and our continuing coverage of the TPC explosions and fire. We'll post all new information on our website, KFDM.com, and our Facebook page from tonight through the weekend.
There were a lot of shoppers flocking to stores after their Thanksgiving meal, snagging Black Friday deals. We spoke to some about why they were out so early.
And as we work our way towards the weekend, cloud cover is going to be a fixture across southeast Texas. A cold front bringing us the chance of thunderstorms. We'll talk about them next.
And now, Chad Sanwell, your weather authority.
Not a bad Friday. We did see plenty of cloud cover, and the big story as we head towards the weekend is going to be the expected weather risk with a cold front coming in on Saturday. Slight risk of severe thunderstorms Main threat is going to be the winds that we see. Could see winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. Also some brief heavy rains and not a zero, but a low risk of a possible tornado, which we'll talk more about here in just a moment. In the meantime, we're looking at our live Weather Network camera brought to you by Do Good and Crown Electric. A little bit of fog showing up in mid-county this evening as we're looking out over Highway 365. Very tough to see the refineries down in Port Arthur. You take a look at temperatures, generally upper 60s to around 70 degrees. Those temperatures really not moving a whole lot throughout the course of the afternoon, nor are they expected to move a whole lot during the course of the evening. Visibility, we've got visibility down to 3 miles in Orange right now and less than 2 miles in mid-county, so that fog is going to be a fixture, but I think the winds pick up a little bit, so I think the fog maybe breaks up as we push into the later evening hours. Plenty of cloud cover out there this afternoon, and that's going to be the case through the night tonight and into the day on your Saturday. And that brings us to our next weather maker, which is the cold front coming in on Saturday. Heading through the night tonight, plenty of clouds, and then you can see just a few very isolated showers. Overnight, about a 20% coverage. As we head throughout Saturday, rain chances do start to pick up. There's 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. The front still sits back to the west. Rain chances starting to pick up across southeast Texas. In advance of that front, we're going to call for about a 70% coverage of showers and thunderstorms. The storms get their strongest at about 7 o'clock, just ahead of this cold front as it starts to push through. And that's when we expect to see the possibility of some severe weather. By Sunday evening, or I should say late Saturday night, the cold front pushes offshore. We'll start seeing some of that drier air moving in. Now, as that front does push through, the strongest storms will be up to our north into Tyler, Jasper, and Newton County on up into north central Louisiana. That's where we have a slight risk for severe weather. And as we showed you just a few moments ago, mainly wind is going to be the big risk, but again, that tornado risk, not zero. So keep it here throughout the day on Saturday, and we will certainly keep you advised as those storms do develop. Some potentially heavy rain, 1 to 1.5 inches from Woodville over to Jasper, a little closer to the coast. Basically, about a 1/4 inch of rain is expected. Now, plenty of moisture tonight on through Saturday, but as that cold front comes through, watch what happens as we go from Saturday night into Sunday. The drier air moves in, and that eventually is going to bring some cooler air into place. The coldest morning behind this front expected to be Tuesday morning with temperatures into the upper 30s to around 40 degrees. But overall, we are expecting plenty of sunshine as we push through the beginning of the week. Next 5 days, temperatures going from the mid-60s on Sunday down to around 60 on Monday. A slow climb as we head back toward the middle of the week. Your forecast tonight calling for temperatures middle 60s, 20% coverage of showers both in the lakes and in the triangle, upper 60s toward the coast. How about tomorrow afternoon? Temperatures middle to upper 70s, 70% coverage of showers and storms as that front pushes through, 78 in Beaumont, 77 for Port Arthur and Orange. Your extended forecast over the next 7 days brought to you by Philpott Ford. We're going to be looking at that cold front coming through on Saturday. Plenty of sunshine throughout next week until another cold front comes in on Friday. Let's look at your forecast. Stick around. We'll be right back.
As shoppers flock to the mall for Black Friday, KFDM's Kelsey Borza went out early this morning to talk to some Academy shoppers about their experience. Shoppers braved long lines and crowded walkways trying to save a little cash. Stores like Best Buy, Walmart, and Target all opened last night to give early bird shoppers a chance to score some pretty hot deals. Retail stores as well as restaurants have not slowed down since opening their doors early last night in hopes to get the best price for their holiday gifts. It's a major day for discount shopping, not only here, but all across the country. How it's bringing relief to those affected by the TPC explosions.
Happening now, it is Black Friday, one of the biggest and busiest shopping days of the year. KFDM's Tan Radford reports how some shoppers are using Black Friday in Beaumont for bargain shopping and relief after an evacuation and explosions at the TPC plant in Port Neches.
Shoppers are in and out of stores in and around Parkdale Mall within minutes during one of the busiest shopping days of the year, Black Friday.
The lines have been great so far. The prices have been super.
Annette Barber prepared for Black Friday Thanksgiving night.
The day before, we take our paperwork and, our newspapers, and we go through it and make sure everything is, where's the best deal? Where are we going first?
Traffic is moving steadily on Dallin Road and East Tex Freeway near Parkdale Mall and surrounding stores. No crowds in sight.
I thought it might be a little more crowded, but the line was a little bit longer once we got up to the front, but it was just very smooth.
Randy Young, a business owner in Port Neches, is using the bargain shopping as a relief from the damage and explosions at the TPC plant.
You can take your mind out of it. You know, if you can't get back to your house, it's a good place to go. Save a little bit of money and not have to think about, you know, what's going on back in Port Neches.
You know, for those that lost things, you know, I'm so happy if stores are willing to help them. I feel sorry for, I'll get emotional, for those that were out of their house for the explosion. But, you know, other than that, you know, whatever people do for each other is what it's about.
In Beaumont, Tian Radford, KFDM 6 News.
Cold front comes in tomorrow, bringing us a chance of showers and storms. Some of those will be severe. Stay with us on air and online, and we'll have the latest throughout the day.
Thanks for watching us.
We'll be back tonight at 10 o'clock, friends. We'll see you then.